Alright people, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell notification. That way you'll know when I upload the next video and you'll be supporting my channel. Follow me on Twitter. Every time I upload a new video, I'll be tweeting. Ladies and gentlemen, reaction. This is Rome the Punic Wars. The second Punic War begins. Accessory part 2 by the channel extra credits. Yes, the Punic Wars. I guess he's gonna talk about the second Punic Wars in this one, about the Hannibal, who's gonna literally go all the way around to reach Rome rather than go from the sea. He takes his army, elephants and everything. I guess go through the mountains and shit. Most of elephants die. Lots of his army dies. I guess in a way he invades certain cities. He tries to reinforce his army and reaches Rome anyway. Gets an infection, eye infection or something, and cut out his eye or something. That's just some next level shit right there. And as far as I remember, Hannibal is just one of those guys who was so good throughout the history that history nuts know them, right? History notes know him as a big guy, but it's not one of those names that it's just everybody knows, even somebody's not a history nut, like, I guess Julius Caesar, Napoleon, things like that. But if he had certain victories, important victories here and there, he would have, I guess, remembered as one of the big ones. That's how good he was, if I remember correctly. So let's always want. Remember, if you like my reaction, don't forget to like, subscribe, so I know which type of videos to react to more, I guess. Check out the reaction, there's a link in the description, check out the cards, so please check the link cards, and yeah, let's do it.
Welcome back. Let's have some more Roman history, shall we? When we left off last time, Hamilcar's son Hannibal controlled a powerful army expanding the Carthaginian territory in the Iberian Peninsula. Today we begin the Second Punic War itself. Hannibal's campaign in Iberia was slowly taking his army ever northward. Eventually, his territory expanded dangerously near to the Ebro River, which the previous Carthaginian ruler in Spain had established as the border where Carthaginian influence ended and Roman influence began. Obviously, the Romans were not fans of this development, but here's where it gets murky. To this day, historians can't agree on which river the Ebro River referred to in the treaty actually is, which makes interpreting what happens next simply a matter of deciding who you believe. You see, there was a Greek colony in northern Spain called Saguntum. It was a prosperous trading city, and they had recently signed a treaty with Rome. The Romans claimed that, according to the Ebro River Treaty, this city was sacrosanct and under their protection. But Hannibal claimed it was on the wrong side of the river, and therefore part of his territory. The year is 219 BC. Hannibal is 26 years old, and he remembers the oath his father made him take: never be a friend to Rome. So he attacks, laying siege to the city, rebuking the Roman embassies that come to him for all the wrongs Rome has done Carthage. For 8 months, the Saguntines hold out, all the while pleading to Rome for help, begging their ally to come save them from what, without aid, is their certain doom. But Rome sent no troops. They had recently become embroiled in a war in Illyria, the Balkan region north of Greece, so never sent the aid the Saguntines were counting on, figuring that Saguntum could hold out on its own until their own Balkan war was done. But Hannibal's forces were too much for them. At long last, with the Saguntum population starving and the defenders falling back from outer wall to inner wall to the citadel of the city itself, Hannibal emerged victorious, and his army pillaged the city, selling into slavery everybody they didn't kill. Now, this is the point where Rome might have been able to prevent the Second Punic War. Might have...
Oh, seriously, man, Rome, what the fuck? All those people basically either got killed or sold to slavery because their own people then came to their rescue, the Romans. What the fuck?
Nipped it in the bud, but by not acting on their treaty and not rescuing their ally, they brought 20 years of unimaginable war upon the Mediterranean. When Saguntum fell, Rome sent an emissary to Carthage to offer them a choice: surrender Hannibal to Rome or face war. The emissary stood before the Carthaginian Senate, surrounded by all the great men of Carthage, and said to them, "I hold before you both peace and war." The leader of the Senate spat back, "Choose what you will." The envoy replied, "I choose war." And the entire chamber exploded with shouts of, "We accept it!" And now it's on. Hannibal's off the leash. The Second Punic War has begun. The Romans begin to prepare for war. They send an army down to Sicily with one of their consuls to get ready for an invasion of Carthage in North Africa, and they send their other consul off with an army to invade Iberia and capture Carthaginian holdings there, leaving a small force of recruits to make sure that the Gauls in northern Italy don't take this as an opportunity to cause mischief while the bulk of the military is away. And now is probably a good time to take a moment to talk a little bit about Roman politics, because it's going to become very important in a second. You see, in Rome, each year they would elect 2 consuls to be the heads of state. These guys would function more or less like the US president, except that they each had veto power over the other, and unlike the president, who is supreme commander of the US military but doesn't actually fight on the ground, these guys would also be the ones to lead the Roman armies into battle. They were very much the generals on the ground, choosing the strategies and directing the battles. Of course, they weren't amateurs in this. You had to have 10 years of military service to even be eligible for the lowest
Wait a minute. Really? The consuls who held the fasces, they lead armies? I thought any active army general cannot even enter Rome, so how does that even work? How can you lead an army into a war and also hold fasces?
political office in Rome. Nonetheless, we're going to see how politics affect this war pretty soon. For now, back to Hannibal. Hannibal is a clever guy. He realizes that trying to defend North Africa is a losing proposition, and he knows that fighting on his own turf in Iberia will only result in a slow defeat. So he plans to do the unthinkable and invade Italy by crossing the Alps.
Yes.
Now, of course, that's the one thing the Romans didn't plan for.
This is incredible. They literally send one to, oh, fuck it. They're coming from Carthage. I'm going to take over Carthage. And also the one they just took over. So they send two small armies to take those places. But Hannibal doesn't even give a fuck. He just literally goes past the Alps and just try to enter Rome. He's like, you want to take Carthage? It's yours. Take Spain. That's also yours. I'm here to take Rome because that's my shit now.
And invade Italy by crossing the Alps. Now, of course, that's the one thing the Romans didn't plan for. The army they left in northern Italy is nothing but raw recruits and the dregs of their former forces. All of their real soldiers are either heading south to prepare for an African invasion, or making the trek across what is now France to invade Spain. And that's where the first skirmish of the war happens.
Not even Romans think that nobody's crazy enough to take all these armies and shit and cross Alps. They would have so much damages. And Hannibal's like, do you know the definition of insanity? Yeah, the definition is me.
Spain invasion force runs into Hannibal as he's making his way to the Alps, and their scouts clash. A few hundred cavalry from each side run into each other unexpectedly and come to blows. The Roman scouts manage to push back the Carthaginians. It's nothing decisive. The important thing is that they live to report this news back to their commander, Publius Cornelius Scipio. You're going to want to remember that name, Scipio. You know how on the Carthaginian side you have the sons of the great general Hamilcar from the last war, fighting together on a blood oath they swore to their father to avenge the shame Carthage suffered at the hands of the Romans? Well, this guy is their Roman equivalent. This Scipio we just met will eventually die on the field, slain by Hannibal's armies, but his son will later crush Hannibal and turn the tide of the war, and his great-grandson will go on to sack Carthage and wipe them out forever, 70 years after the story we're telling. See, that's part of what makes the Second Punic War so epic. Blood oaths and vengeance, rivalry from two great houses, a war passed down from father to son, two bloodlines vying for the fate of the world. It's awesome. And this battle is their first meeting where the whole rivalry begins. Died. Scipio, now aware of Hannibal's invasion force, tries to give chase, but Hannibal manages to slip away. Without the resources or the logistics in place to do otherwise, Scipio makes the fateful decision to have his army press on toward Spain as planned, while he himself speeds back with all haste to rally the forces in northern Italy. Hannibal, meanwhile, continues his march across France. The Romans expected him to be slowed down by hostile tribes, just like they always were when they tried to cross Gaul, but Hannibal has planned ahead, and he already offered the tribes generous gifts and the promise that his fury has only one target, Rome. And the plan works, mostly. He does still get halted by the local forces once. At the Rhone River...
Yeah, everybody Gaul is like, you going as who? Romans? Fuck him. Those, pushy assholes. Yeah, take them down. You have our support.
A band of Gauls with Roman allegiances assemble an army on the far side, intending to prevent his crossing. However, unbeknownst to them, Hannibal has already sent one of his officers, Hanno, known as Hanno, son of Bomilcar, to differentiate him from Hannibal's own son, also named Hanno, just to be perfectly confusing. Anyway, Hannibal already sent Hanno with some hand-picked troops to cross the river upstream. So Hannibal makes to cross, the Gauls assemble on the opposite bank to stop him, and then, just as planned, Hanno comes bursting out of hiding and assaults their forces from the rear, scattering the Gaul force and leaving the way open for Hannibal's army to continue their march. And haste was essential for Hannibal, as it was already September and he had to get his army across the Alps before it got any colder. Even at this pace, the conditions they faced in the Alps were brutal. There is a reason why this march is one of the most famous events in military history, and why its audacity caught the Romans entirely by surprise, and that's because everyone thought it was impossible. There was no way you could march an army through the treacherous peaks of the Alps in the beginning of winter. It simply could not be done. And yet, Hannibal went and did it. He dismissed the less reliable members of his army at the foot of the Alps, and began his ascent. The weather was brutal. Men froze to death, mules fell from the frozen cliffs still laden with the army's food and supplies, hill tribes attacked them and rolled boulders onto the narrow paths, ice and snow beset them the whole way.
Saying he did it is kind of a stretch. Lots of people die, lots of his mules, elephants fell over from the Alps. I mean, yeah, sure, he did it, but with many casualties.
And at times men had to crawl to make it along the tiny mountain track. But they did it. In the end, they made it to Italy. But the cost? By some accounts, Hannibal had 98,000 men when he started the climb, and only 26,000 when he set foot into Italy on the other side. Upon reaching Italy, Hannibal gives his troops time to rest from the arduous crossing, and tries to recruit the local Gauls to his cause, as they have no love for the Romans either. Meanwhile, Scipio is racing toward them with whatever handful of troops he can assemble, knowing full well what Hannibal intends. They meet, and come to blows in a whirlwind cavalry engagement by the Ticino. The larger, better-trained Carthaginian cavalry dances circles around the Roman infantry and the few cavalry Scipio could muster. The engagement is small but a decisive defeat for the Romans, a defeat in which Scipio is gravely wounded, and would have lost his life if it weren't for a heroic rescue by his then 18-year-old son fighting by his side, a man we will later know as Scipio Africanus. So Scipio withdraws to recover and regroup. This skirmish may not have been a major victory for the Carthaginians, but it's an enormous boost to their morale after such a grueling journey, and the local Gauls, upon hearing of the battle, start to think Hannibal's army might have a chance, and they begin defecting en masse. Now Rome is worried. The other consul, Sempronius Longus, is recalled from Sicily, and he and his legions start marching north to join Scipio's battered command. When he arrives, Sempronius immediately starts pressing for an attack, but Scipio, having already seen Hannibal's army in action, cautions against it. Sempronius is eager, though, hot-headed and looking to brawl. He believes Scipio's caution is born of his wounds, and thinks him cowardly to not attempt to drive this invader from Roman soil. Scipio advises they use winter for training. As you'll remember, the men left in northern Italy were raw recruits, or the remnants of a previously defeated army. But here's where the Roman politics comes in. The next year's elections are drawing near, and Sempronius wants a glorious victory for his faction and his family before this term's done. He is not going to be denied this opportunity. Now, while each Roman consul is actually the supreme commander of his army, when two consuls are together, they alternate days for who is in charge of the whole thing. Hannibal knows this, and he also knows about Sempronius' temperament, which he uses to bait a trap. Early one morning, after sending his brother Mago with 2,000 hand-picked men to hide behind a small hill, Hannibal sends out a detachment of cavalry to harass the Roman army, who are camped just across the river Trebia. It's the winter solstice, one of the coldest days of the year. Sleet is pouring down, and the sun's just barely beginning to rise when this detachment is spotted. Sempronius orders the chase, and his men leap out of bed, throwing on their armor, and prepare to engage. The Carthaginian cavalry retreats across the river, and Sempronius gives chase. He orders his men to wade across the water. The men drag themselves to the other side in full armor, sometimes up to their necks in the freezing water. Once across, it's clear that Hannibal's willing to meet them in battle, so the troops are ordered to form up. Think about how long it would take to get 50,000 men organized and in formation, with nothing but shouting and some flags. It takes hours. So here the men are, standing in the sleet, soaked from head to toe with frigid water, roused before dawn and launched into a chase without even time for a meal. It's probably been half a day since any of them have eaten. Meanwhile, Hannibal let his men sleep in, and had them around big roaring fires.
There is nothing in this world that you can convince people to do grueling shit that they do during the wars. I mean, it's just astonishing every time I see it, whether it's world wars, even things like this. They go through grueling instances to fight each other, right? I mean, it's in the end, obviously, the thing is, it's about our, national security or whatever, right? Our defense, otherwise we'll die. But even if it's not that, it's the glory of, our country. We're going to conquer places. There's always some excuse. But just to fight, humans go to the ridiculous level of, effort, basically. Gruesome conditions that you can't even think of. In anything else besides war, you could offer them anything and they would not go through all of this. I mean, it's just too fucked up. But for war, humans have constantly went through shit like this. It's just ridiculous. During the solstice, it literally just means that, sun doesn't come up that much. So freezing cold temperature, they crosses rivers, 50,000 of them just to fight.
Eating a hearty meal before forming up. Now, to add to that, put yourself in the Romans' shoes for a moment. Imagine you're a provincial Roman farmer. The most you've seen of the world is maybe the length of Italy if you're really well-traveled. Now, imagine that through the sleet and the mist, you see a great gray lumbering bulk begin to emerge.
Elephants.
Imagine you see this creature 2.5 times as tall as you, at least a chariot length long, with glistening white tusks and a distended snout, its eerie trumpeting carrying across to you faintly on the wind. This is probably the closest that human beings ever got to legit fighting monsters, fighting something so alien and gargantuan that there was no frame of reference for them. The average Italian had probably never even heard of an elephant, much less seen one before. So imagine lining up against that, and knowing that you'll have to fight such a thing with just your short spear and your sword. Now, despite all of those disadvantages, the Roman infantry fared pretty well at first, more than holding their own against the
Seriously, I mean, the earliest time, the cavemen basically who fought woolly mammoths and things like that, they had to go through lots of evolution, like, developing sweating and things like that, so they have higher stamina and just getting all this advantage. Otherwise, they wouldn't have gone past the woolly mammoth and all these predators. So this kind of equivalent to these people, Romans basically, they just see this kind of gigantic elephant. Like, holy shit, and these are war elephants, not just your everyday elephant. So they probably choose specific gigantic ones, the biggest elephant you can find. These are the war elephants. You see those like that, like, big ears like that, and then suddenly you see this ear going back. Like, what are they doing? Oh, fuck me, they're about to charge.
hodgepodge of Numidians, Celts, and Spaniards that faced them, but the exhausted Roman cavalry is driven off the field. The Numidian cavalry then wheels around and attacks the Roman flanks. At the same time, Mago's forces, that have been so patiently laying in ambush, spring onto the Roman rear and everything starts to collapse. Though Sempronius escapes with his life, the Romans' retreat leaves more than 25,000 dead. For the first time, the Romans see this is going to be no easy war. Join us next time for the continuation of the Second Punic War. Thanks for watching.
Oh my god. Look, if I were Hannibal, what I would have done is, use some kind of a makeup if you can. Like, anything, mud or something that doesn't make them look alive or something. Like, make them look pale or, make them look more black. Paint them in some way, camouflage in some way that they don't look, I guess, natural. Because they've never seen this. I wouldn't make elephants look like hellish creature before attacking. Just for that psychological edge. They've never seen elephant. Now they see this kind of gigantic creature who looks like, hellspawn attacking you. You wouldn't even try to attack them. You just think, oh shit, Hannibal is coming with the devil or something. Would have run away. I mean, if I knew that they had never seen an elephant, that's what I would have done. Just for the element of surprise and, the psychological warfare. Right, people, that was Rome, the Punic War, the Second Punic War begins. Part 2 by the channel Extra Credits. If you like my reaction to phone, like, subscribe. So I know which type of videos to react to more, I guess. Check out the reaction, there's a link in the description. Check out the cast, so please check the cards. And yeah, comment down after this Punic War which next series should I react to from Extra Credits. Right? And yeah, I'll see you next time.